Hey everyone,
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all!
I am the Pumpkin King!
I sure do like pumpkins, Cotton.
and today I'm going to be ranking all 11 live-action villains that we see in the Spider-Man franchise.
Spiders gotta die, so trees can grow.
I'm a huge Spider-Man fan and have been since I was a kid, reading the comics and watching the cartoons.
Spider-Man!
This is such an incredibly divisive film franchise, spread out over different generations, so please let me know your thoughts down below, and let's get some good conversations going on.
Don't make me come down there, you punk!
With great power comes great responsibility.
If you're curious what my greater opinions are on all 8 live-action Spider-Man films, check out my review and ranking posted in the description down below.
It goes over my head. My reflexes are too fast. I would catch it.
And please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoy this video, as I have more Spider-Man content planned very soon.
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.
It means the world to me.
That's what I thought, nerd.
But let's not waste any more time and jump right into this. In last place for me, I have to put the Rhino from Amazing Spider-Man 2.
You suck!
What an absolute waste of not just a character, but an actor. What a shame it is to see such a great actor like Paul Giamatti get reduced to yelling nonsense at the camera.
Say hello to Alexei Sinzevich!
He is so over the top and cartoonish, it is insane. He felt like something out of a gritty Joel Schumacher Batman movie. He starts the movie in a headache-inducing car chase, causing tens of thousands of dollars of damage to the city, while Spider-Man is joking around, quipping at him.
Knock, knock. Hey, my name is Spider-Man. You can call me Webhead, you can call me Amazing, just don't call me late for dinner, you get it?
Oh my god, like, do something, Spider-Man. That scene pisses me off so much. And the ending sequence is a complete waste, slowly building up to this awesome fight that never happens on screen. Thanks, movie. I really appreciate it.
Fuck you!
The design of the Rhino suit wasn't that amazing either. It felt like an expensive Power Rangers boss, similar to another villain higher up on this list.
You meet again, Spider-Man!
Especially given the fact that all we see it do is stand and shoot and run for like 3 seconds. I'm sure they had more planned for him, as the second Amazing Spider-Man was busy setting up a million different movies.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
But we never see any of it come to light. It's all buried in a box somewhere. Maybe given the chance it could have been badass, but I'm gonna stay skeptical, especially given the quality of the movie he's featured in. He's played almost as a joke in the beginning with Spider-Man leaving him webbed up with his pants down, and the end with the kid standing up to him in what was a great scene, I will admit. So all in all, this character is just flat out bad. His motivations as a bad guy are never explored, nor his background, so I can't justify putting him any higher than just last place.
That is one big pile of shit.
And then?
In second to last place for me is another Amazing Spider-Man 2 villain, Dan DeHaan and Mark Webb's version of the Green Goblin. All I can say is, wow, what a sloppy mess this character is. He's the definition of poor setup and microwaving a character to rush them out as quick as possible. He hijacks a good chunk of the movie for a completely forced and dumb storyline. He pops up as Peter's long-lost friend, even though he's never mentioned before.
What? What an idiot! Oh, what a loser!
He gets the same disease as his father, but for some reason what took 50 years to kill Norman Osborn is killing his son in weeks, days. We honestly don't know because it's not explained. Like, that isn't stupid as fuck at all. The look they give him is interesting to say the least, though. It's kind of cool how they made his physical features emulate a goblin or orc just a little bit. And the dynamic between Peter and Harry isn't bad, and the chemistry between the two is passable, but that's mostly due to how awesome of an actor Andrew Garfield is. I don't buy these two being friends, but I could see them being co-workers for a few weeks at one point in time, I guess. But definitely no best friend vibes here, which really takes away from the impact Harry has as a villain and a character, especially given the fact that he kills Gwen Stacy in his little amount of screen time. No way that was earned at all.
Man, this is some bullshit!
The personal connection is just missing. I do kind of like, wait, let me rephrase that. I do understand the motivations he has as a villain, being angry at Spider-Man for not giving him his blood and dying of this disease that drives him to experiment on himself. That makes enough sense not to aggravate me, I suppose, but overall, this character is a huge misstep and was extremely wasted. He's rushed and forced in, and nothing is developed naturally. The Raimi trilogy did it right, developing Harry over the course of 2 movies before he took on the mantle of the new Goblin.
So good.
This was a very easy one to place on my list. Next up for me in 9th place is the Lizard from The Amazing Spider-Man. This is a very frustrating character for me, as I absolutely love the first half with him exclusively as Dr. Connors. The casting was great, and I think the chemistry he has with Peter early on is superb, along with the crystal clear motivational force. You can't really hate on someone missing a limb and wanting to grow it back.
I lost my hand! I lost my bride!
Super easy to understand, along with it being a really powerful plot point. But everything after he takes the serum is garbage to me personally. Why the hell does he want to turn the whole city into lizards like him? Like, are you horny, big man? Are you lonely that you're the only disgustingly ugly green monster?
Do I make you horny, baby?
Do I make you horny, baby? Yeah!
I really think it's just a dumb way to try and up the stakes to a city-wide scale. Especially when they tease the city turning, but it never pays off. Like, come on, man. In a popcorn movie like this shit show, show me the cool stuff. Like, it really makes my head hurt how dumb his plotline gets as the movie goes on. As soon as he starts to turn, he loses all humanity and becomes a mustache-twirling mad scientist.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
It's just not that dynamic or interesting to watch. His design is also very meh. He looks like the Goombas from the Mario Brothers movie, and that is not good. The action he's in is also very dull. It's not bad, but there's nothing great about it. The powers he brings aren't anything new or interesting either. He's just big and fast and made of a bunch of green CGI. I would have personally preferred if they would have went super cheesy and threw his lab coat over the top of him. He looks so much cooler in the comics, and their interpretation makes no sense and is very disappointing. There's a reason why in No Way Home he feels like a bench player waiting to run around during the action scenes.
Max, do you know? Do I die?
I'll give him credit as he does kill Captain Stacy in a heartbreaking scene that's super memorable, but all in all, he kind of sucks as the Lizard, and the interpretation doesn't work for me at all. Up next for me is Venom from Spider-Man 3. I loved Venom from the cartoons as a kid and the comics, and the easiest way to sum up the live-action interpretation of this villain in a nutshell is disappointing. I do really like the actual Venom monster we see here. It does look pretty good despite the dated CGI. But the man behind the mask that they cast in Topher Grace kind of ruins it for me.
Because you're not quite evil enough. You're quasi-evil. You're semi-evil. You're the margarine of evil. Just 1 calorie, not evil enough.
I don't mind him as an actor. I was a huge fan of him on That 70s Show, but every time the Venom mask slides back and reveals his face, I fall completely out of the film. The idea of making Eddie Brock more of a nerdy rival counterpart to Peter rather than a huge muscly man was a good idea. It was just executed so poorly. But there was some solid thematics going on with this character, along with a very clear, understandable motive.
I like being bad.
makes me happy.
With Peter calling him out for faking pictures, the dissent and hatred for Peter and Spider-Man makes a lot of sense. It was just a little too rushed and left me feeling unsatisfied.
That's what she said.
If they would have made him more sympathetic and likable, his death at the end of Spider-Man 3 would have been a lot more impactful. It would have been amazing if when he was diving back into the symbiote to gain the power back, I was screaming, "No, don't do it," but instead I was yelling, "Yes, die, you idiot, you stupid fuck." I can't lie, sometimes it's great to watch people get what's coming to them, but it wasn't earned either way here. He's just unlikable to me at the end of the day. I do think the design of Venom was pretty good here though, especially the look of his black webs. It's a great visual contrast to Spider-Man. His powers are showed off decently as well in the big action scene at the end of Spider-Man 3. And he does kill Harry Osborn, which does make a big impact at the end of Spider-Man 3, but unfortunately we never get to see the real repercussions of it in the next film, which never got greenlit. When it's 100% Venom and I can forget that Topher is in there, it works. But unfortunately, he pops his head out often and he's given zero backstory. And there's absolutely nothing sympathetic about this turd of a character. And there's honestly not a lot to say about him either. He just doesn't get a lot of screen time and is never fleshed out. So he's definitely got to go towards the bottom of this list. Next up for me is the Sandman. This is by far the most confusing, wishy-washy villain on this list. The character really can't decide what his motivations are or if he's good or evil. Based on the first half of Spider-Man 3, you would think he's just a unlucky guy trying to save his daughter by earning money in some shady ways. But then they throw in the twist of him being Uncle Ben's original killer for absolutely no reason. I don't hate it as it does work with the tone of the movie, but similar to some of the other villains, especially on the lower end of my list, it's just rushed, sloppy, and seems forced. It seems to only be there to assist in the evil emo Peter plot point in Spider-Man 3. His character motivations make absolutely zero sense as the movie goes on. He teams up with Venom to take Spider-Man out, like, why, dude?
Not a great plan.
Are you pissed he kicked your ass earlier in the film?
I don't care!
Well, guess what? You killed his uncle, so I think you have it coming, man.
You dumb bastard.
But I do think he brings some amazing overall action. It's surprisingly great watching this literal Sandman dole out some damage. His powers are really cool and well visualized as well, with him growing giant fists to beat down his enemies. The emotion they try to throw in with his sick daughter is effective but not executed well. It's kind of hard not to sympathize for someone in that position, but it could have been so much better in my opinion. They honestly never show up again after popping up early in the movie. It seems cheap, easy, and a complete waste of time. But no hate, because I'm sure it's honestly canon to the comics, so you gotta throw it in, I suppose, but do it well. I like the actor that got to play him along with the look. They just didn't give him enough screen time to flesh him out properly. I like how they bring him back in No Way Home, especially the moments where he's on the side of good, building off the end of Spider-Man 3 going, "Hey Peter," but they kind of drop the ball again with him becoming evil just for shits and giggles. I think this character, like everyone on this list, has a ton of potential, but he's unfortunately never gotten the time to shine. Nor does he make any sense as a character with his decision-making rationale. There's just not a lot to go off of for this one. He's not overwhelmingly bad, but he's not really that good either. He has no highs or super lows. Up next for me in 6th place, I hate to say it, but this is where he landed. In 6th place is Electro. There's not a lot of positives that I can honestly say about this big bad, but I do like the updated version of Max Dillon / Electro that we get in No Way Home.
How you like the new?
And it kind of makes up for his horrible first appearance, I guess. He brought a much more grounded and intimidating presence to the screen.
You ain't even the shit no more. Oh, don't worry about me.
Thug life.
The acting, performance, and look was so much better in every way. But unfortunately, it doesn't really make that much sense to me because he doesn't even look a tiny bit like the original Max Dillon. Because they tried to say that that's the character from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but they don't try to emulate it at all. While he was getting sucked through the multiverse, did they like hit the random character generator and like shift everything around? I'm kind of glad they didn't do the goofy Schumacher Riddler ripoff, but that's what you set up, so I just couldn't quite get past it. It would have been really interesting to see the MCU try to translate that character accurately. But like I said, I do get it 100% because you had to do something. And I think the changes were for the better at the end of the day. I'm just getting a little bit nitpicky. It led to an interesting evolution of Electro getting some Stark technology from a different universe and becoming super OP. It actually gave the character some motivation with him trying to grow his powers. A lot better than the horrible rapping voices and score that accompanied him in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, being the lonely loser.
Stay with me, Max.
You set me up.
No,
You lied to me.
no, I'm trying to help.
The character in general in that film was so all over the place with the light and dark tones. He's so over the top silly and is stuffed inside a bloated film that's taking itself too serious for its own good. Check out my review and ranking of all 8 live-action Spider-Man films in the description and the pinned comment down below if you want to know more. He is so bad in The Amazing Spider-Man that it is kind of hilarious though, so I guess that's a positive.
You like that, Spidey? I like it a lot, Max.
The new interpretation of him in No Way Home, combined with the so bad it's good nature of his first appearance, makes me put him a little bit higher on this list. I definitely don't like him, but compared to the other villains a little bit lower than him, he does have some higher highs. But the low lows are still there for sure. Before I continue, I do want to say that I think from here the villains do take a big step forward in overall quality.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
Next up on my list at number 5 is Mysterio from Spider-Man Far From Home. This Spider-Man villain has some of the highest highs among the villains on this list, but he also has some real lows for me.
You blew it!
My biggest issue by far is Mysterio's master plan. It's so dumb and it keeps me from liking him and Spider-Man Far From Home as much as I want to. It's really frustrating. The idea of using drones to create holograms is so unbelievably stupid. If the military or a superhero, fuck, even a bird shows up, you're fucked, man.
If they had a flock of birds or something, you're fine.
Well, I want to see what's happening there. I'm taking manual control.
I'm not sure how he was planning to move forward as Mysterio, and it kind of bummed me out that the elementals he was using were fake, but all the little details surrounding the character as a whole were great. He would be much higher if he had an actual realistic plan going forward, and he was a little bit more threatening besides just, I guess he did have a drone army, but still. Jake Gyllenhaal's performance as the fishbowl helmeted illusionist is amazing as always for this A-lister. I love the chemistry and the acting is really amazing. The visuals he brings are really cool for the most part. They're just a tad cartoonish in places for me. It takes me out of the film just a little bit, but the action is pretty solid for the most part. It manages to stay grounded despite the mind-bending visuals. It's just not that interesting watching Spider-Man fight drones to me. And even though he's pretty small stakes with his dumb plan, he is quite intimidating with his drone army that he manipulates away from young Peter Parker. I sure as hell ain't trying to fight those things. And he even manages to create chaos with his death, just like a true villain would, when he reveals to the world Peter's identity. Big evil villain props there, man. I just don't get what the big deal is. Everyone knows every other hero's identity in the MCU, so what's new? The goofy look they give him works though. It's silly as fuck, but they blend it together nicely in the grander MCU. His backstory is definitely stock as hell, being another scorned former Stark employee. We've never seen that before, but he's definitely one of the better examples of Tony Stark created villains. So all in all, this big bad just kind of frustrates me, but I do really like him. And I honestly do think it's Jake Gyllenhaal's performance. If they would have gotten a different actor, I don't think it would have worked near as well.
The chance of getting hit is... Fire all the drones now!
Next up in my fourth spot is Harry Osborn's version of the new Goblin in Spider-Man 3. I love the relationship dynamic this villain has with both Peter Parker and Spider-Man. It's built up so well throughout the Raimi trilogy with Harry's hatred over the death of his dad. And the relationship with his dad was subtly executed really well in the first Raimi film, which makes all the payoff so much more satisfying. The motivations with this one are so understandable and relatable at the same time. And it's interesting how he is literally only after Spider-Man and Peter throughout the film.
Spider's gotta die.
He's not really evil, he just has daddy issues and is a little bit pissed off. It's just a little irritating watching him butt heads with Peter because their problems could be solved with just a simple conversation. Harry, your father is evil and he killed himself. Oh, okay.
You killed my father. There are bigger things happening here than me and you.
Really irritating, not gonna lie. But the end of his arc with his sacrificial death saving Peter was so emotional. I wasn't tearing up by any means, but the blow of having him go after finally deciding to be good was kinda tragic. The action set pieces he's involved in are great, with the early fight starting Spider-Man 3, along with the apartment fight and the big finale where he saves the day.
Looks like just in the nick of time.
A couple minutes ago wouldn't have been so bad either.
What are you gonna do?
One of the most epic, dynamic, and emotional scenes in the Spidey franchise, for sure. I don't care who you are. Watching Spidey and Harry team up for Sandman and Venom is pretty epic, even though the movie as a whole misses the mark. There's honestly not a lot of bad to say about this one. He packs the emotional stakes, his motivations are pure, and he's given excellent time to simmer into his final form.
So good.
The action involving him is solid, and the acting is great as well.
In my head.
Yeah.
I know that face.
How you doing?
My best friends.
There are just better overall villains on this list, and he never brings grandiose stakes.
Stings, doesn't it?
Protected you in high school, now I'm gonna kick your little ass.
Ooh. Look at little Goblin Jr.
And he's kind of a side character for a lot of the movies, but his screen time is utilized pretty well. So in number 4, he goes.
I'm done trying to convince you.
In my third spot, I have the Vulture from Spider-Man Homecoming. The highlight of this character is the backstory and the internal motivations he has. It's cliche being scorned by Tony Stark yet again, but it's done in such a relatable and sympathetic way. I might honestly do the same thing in his position, and I love bad guys who you can understand and relate to. He's just trying to take care of his family and got pushed too far till he broke bad. Similar to the great Walter White, he never really went after anyone. He sold dangerous weapons, which is a big no-no, but he never tried to hurt anyone except Spider-Man, who was messing with his business. He's still a very bad character, don't get me wrong, but he's so human and not just evil. He even refused to sell Spider-Man out while in prison, so big props, man. The personal connection and tension between Vulture and Peter Parker was also really great, especially the little twist reveal of Vulture's larger identity when Peter picks up his date Liz to the dance. along with the scenes in the car when Toomes realizes who Spider-Man is and is threatening Peter with the lights changing on his face. Such great moments. The action he brings is solid enough, and the dynamic between him and Spider-Man is kinda cool. The height and speed at which he flies really brings Peter out of his element and adds crazy tension to their fight scenes. You can especially feel the weight of all the punches, and there's grounded grittiness to their final fight, despite all the CGI. The stakes he brings are small scale, but really enjoyable in that friendly neighborhood Spider-Man vibe. And the actor they cast in Michael Keaton was really enjoyable. He brought great on-screen chemistry. Every second he was on screen, I was fascinated. And his suit was actually really solid. I remember the old school cartoon comic Vulture suit, and they modernized it in a great way. There's really not any big negatives for me, other than him being Liz's dad might be a little convenient, but it was set up well in the first scene of the movie. So I really can't hate. The other villains above him are just more epic and important to the overall Spider-Man franchise. But that being said, I think the Vulture is an incredible villain, and I can't wait to see more.
Oh yeah.
My next two picks were incredibly close, and they did go back and forth fighting for the top spot. They're both so different and awesome in different ways.
This is great. This is the bee's knees, item 9.
But that being said, my number 2 is William Dafoe's Green Goblin. There's so much to love about this character, and I like how both of the different versions we get in both Spider-Man 2002 and Spider-Man 2022. He's a lot more campy in the earlier Raimi film, but I still think the performance is great. He's kind of over the top goofy, but still manages to stay menacing at the same time.
Itsy bitsy spider went up the water spouts. Down came the goblin and took the spider out.
You'll meet again, Spider-Man!
Although he never really offers any high stakes or drama till No Way Home. In Spider-Man 2002, he's basically only out to get Spider-Man, and the whole second half is him fucking around with him, trying to team up.
It's right.
Here's the real truth. I could squash you like a bug right now, but I'm offering you a choice.
But the motivations in both films were pretty clear, as he's out to create chaos for all those he hates. The costume in the first film was also something I've always thought was super silly.
Really pissed me off.
It really does look like a Power Rangers boss suit. It kind of takes me out of it, especially when you add in the fact that the suit was designed for the military. I can't see the government wanting to fly around dressed like gargoyle goblin things. But the way they fixed the look in No Way Home was subtly done to near perfection. The scene with him throwing away the old costume was kind of fantastic. And the casting of William Dafoe is absolutely amazing as well. He plays the role perfectly, and the way he bounces back and forth between Goblin and Norman Osborn is captivating. I also think the fight scenes in the first Raimi film is maybe the grittiest Spidey action we've seen in any Spider-Man film.
That's rad.
Oh, what? God, right in his beak.
Surprisingly dark given the campiness of the rest of the film, but I love it, and they most definitely didn't drop the ball in No Way Home. He brings the same superb acting and emotional punch, and somehow finds a way to one-up himself in every way. I think this villain's struggle with his humanity is easily among the best of any villain, not just the ones on this list. I really do feel bad for him as he's fighting to stay sane. And the relationship he has with Peter is also really dynamic. I love the scenes between the two when they're not suited up. So much tension and chemistry. In both No Way Home with all the Peters and the original Raimi film. And throw in the fact that he kills Aunt May is tragic as hell, and I think they really nailed that scene. It raises him up as the ultimate villain to Spider-Man. Kinda like the Joker is to Batman, it adds an intense personal vendetta that I think adds some interesting layers. So absolutely no knock on him being my number 2 overall villain, as he is incredible. I just think my number one pick is a little better rounded as an overall character. And that means my number one is...
And your ass if you say and then again!
Doc Ock. The biggest reason why he's my number one is because I love the human element of this character. The internal struggle he's going through being controlled by his mechanical arms is great. I love the fact that he never really loses his humanity. I feel like this is one of the few villains on this list that actually get a character arc, let alone a satisfying one. The way he chooses to be good again and to sacrifice himself at the end of Spider-Man 2 is so great. And the way they continue his arc in No Way Home is perfect. He starts off evil, giving us some incredible fight scenes, but by the end he reaches in and finds that humanity again to become a hero. And he definitely falls under the category of a sympathetic, understandable, rootable big bad. I really feel for him and can understand his motivations as well as the numerous great character layers. We get to spend a lot of time with Dr. Octavius before he turns, and even though some may call some of his early scenes slow, I personally love them. They add so much, especially between him and Peter and Spider-Man. It seems like all the villains have that close personal tie, but I think they actually had respect and admiration between the two here. The scene in No Way Home where he sees Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man all grown up is top notch.
Otto, it's good to see you.
You're all grown up. How are you?
Mwah. The design of his character is also incredible, especially in Spider-Man 2. What an incredible blend of practical and CGI effects. Major props there. He easily brings some of the best action and one-liners without going too far into the campy tone.
You have a train to catch.
The set piece on the train between him and Spidey in Spider-Man 2 is among my favorite action scenes involving any of the villains. All in all, this may not be the most epic or badass big bad, but he's easily the villain who you can sympathize with the most. He's not overwhelmingly evil, and you can understand where he's coming from. He's the hero of his own story and is only trying to help. He just had an accident and loses control. So that's why he is my number one villain. So that will do it for this video, guys.
Good guy wins, bad guy loses. Big friggin' surprise.
Please let me know your thoughts down below. Like I said before, this is an incredibly divisive film franchise spread out over different generations. So let's get some good conversations going, and let me know your own list down below. And please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and go check out my other Spider-Man rankings in the pinned comment down below. It helps my channel out a ton, and I really appreciate it.
That's all you have to do!
Have a good one, everyone. Keep it classy.
You happy? Fatty make a funny?